Today we've got my good friend Chip Cartwright over here. He's busy setting lines, so we're not gonna disturb him, but he's the owner of Silver Streak Lures, really popular bait company everybody uses on the Great Lakes, whether you're salmon fishing or walleye fishing, spoons, spinners, and a lot of custom painted lures that we're gonna be using today. And then we even dug in a little deeper to my friend network here, and we've got Captain Ron Levitan, a longtime big boat guru, and we were able to sneak him on board today. You know, as Ron is setting some lines here, guys says, hey, you know, why do you use big boards, or, you know, maybe I should use little boards? And it's really not an either or thing, it just depends on the situation that you have. We're able to cover a lot more water here with using these big boards, and we don't have as much surge because those individual little church boards like I use aren't surging in the water. We've got one line, we've got a big bungee cord, we'll show you later on that. And that makes a big difference in, you know, the ability to cover water, and we also don't have to fight that board on the way in. So it's much more easy and efficient to run more lines and to not have to fight that as much. Now, you know, guys say, well, I'm only gonna use those. Well, even guys like Ron that do this for a living, you know, they'll use little individual inline boards like my church board that I use later in the year. When the water becomes much cooler and when the boat has to go slower, these big boards really don't work nearly as well. So think about the equipment that you're using, because there's really not one product that's gonna do it all. You're setting this last line here. Basically, we're using our little release with a shower curtain that's gonna go physically to the tow line, but show them what you're doing on the rubber band and how that works.
What we're doing, because we're using a braided line on the main line, and it'll slip through the releases. If you just clip the release on here, it slides, and then it'll change your lead length, which how we're controlling our depth. So what we do is we put a half hitch of rubber band right on there, snug it down. Now it doesn't pull on you. Clip the release right in there. And also, if we get a fish on here, that's your mark. You can go right back to your mark if you forget how far you've gone out on your line counter reel.
You know, another big advantage that guys, you know, we're fishing big walleyes here in the fall, Chip, but show them what it's like there real quick. When that rubber band stretches out with like a white bass, you may pull out like that.
You can see it.
That's gonna pull out. So even if you have a little white bass, you're gonna know the difference. So you can't catch a big walleye if you got a white bass on. So
or a
little
clump
tricks
of weeds.
like that. Clumps of weeds, all those things matter just as much as if you have a big walleye on or a small walleye.
Here we go, fish on.
Chip, now you're gonna wait a little bit after you pop that out, aren't you?
Yep.
Now watch
way
Chip
out there.
He's gonna kind of hold that, and he's gonna allow that fish to pull out of the spread. Because
Just kind of just reel a little bit to keep some tension on them, but you know, that fish bites. You want him to drag back behind the other lines, and he'll come up a little bit so we don't tangle, catch all the inside lines.
There you go. You know, when you're out here in Lake Erie in the summertime and it's warm, junk fish hit anything that moves. I mean, that's why you can't use night crawlers and things like that. And we were trolling crankbait primarily. We're just really unseasonably warm. I mean, we were in like the mid-50s, where typically we're quite a bit cooler. We were 60-some degrees last week in water temperature. And when you have that, white bass will hit anything that moves. And when you get into a pocket like we did, I mean, it's just one after another. And pretty much the only other thing you can do is just kind of mark where they're at and troll out of them and keep the lines clean, reel them in, and move on to the next spot. You know, Chip, this fish ended up being a little white bass, but that rubber band system, it allows you to know if you're gonna have just a little white bass on there, because with inline boards this time of year, I mean, it's very easy for me to miss that, and you'll drag that thing around for forever.
You can see that rod was bent right over, and he didn't release out of the rubber band, but we'll catch you later.
Fish on. Oh. Now that one, Ron, is a walleye, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
You know, you just know. I mean, some of these fish, you think they're a walleye, they're kind of touching over like a couple of those white bass we had, but when it's a walleye, you know it, because I mean, that thing doubled it right over. You didn't even need to feed it out of the line, it pulled it right out.
She's actually, because of the little rougher water, she's actually come right up to the surface already. Which in some instances is good, it's less resistance, but on other days when it's really rough, there's a lot of excessive pull. When you're using braided line like we do, there's no stretch or give. The only cushion we have is our fluorocarbon leader.
And there's not much even really there. We got the stink out of the boat, boys.
All right.
And it's a new custom painted bait. Fantastic.
You know, the one thing about Chip is, you know, he's made all these for years, literally decades, the custom painted blades and spoons. Now we're even doing a little bit with the crankbaits. What's this one called, Chip?
This is called a fire veg. Oh, we had him hooked good.
Fire veg, and he wanted it double hooked.
Yeah, that was such a good color in the spinner blades this summer and the spoons for us, so comes fall time, we've got to go to the plugs. Well, not a whopper, but it's a start.
One down, couple to go.
And here on this time of the fall, not only for the trophies, but this is kind of a development stage. There's not many people here. They're all either hunting, deer or bird hunting. But for us, this is also a workstation where Chip, we give him colors that we want him to develop and then bring down to the shows in through the winter and the spring. And this is the best opportunity we have because there's not a lot of people fishing here. Ross and I get a chance to go out and test all these colors.
And another thing you notice, Chip has all the same rods here. And the bends are going to be almost identical as they kind of surge in the wave. And that's really important too, because when you're running little inline boards like I do on my boat, you really cannot tell absolutely at all that you have a fish on by looking at the rod tip. But in this case you can. So when you see one of those just double over a little bit more, you know, you're going to want to take a look out and look at the release because you probably have a fish on.
Hey.
Fish on!
Fish, there we go. Another fish going on the hot side again.
You know, Chip, that's the second one here, and just the last few on the fast side as we're troughing down here. Talk to him a little bit about what's that doing to the lures compared to the other side.
Well, since that's our outside board, that's speeding that up as we turn, we're going around, it cranks that board up a lot.
I mean, the lures are literally over here.
Yeah, but you're pulling them a lot faster with this side. It's the inside turn, so they're going real slow. You know, that gives you a little clue if the fish wanted a little faster today or a little slower. You know, you do that a lot.
You know, Chip, it's so when you're trying to fight this wind and go trough and do what the fish want, a lot of times it makes it really difficult to not tangle your lines up and keep everything, you know, working, right? I mean,
well, that was the thing, because we were turning so hard, that fish was coming here and he was heading right for the other side of the boat. You know, you get those lines.
A real guy really has to pay attention. You can't just simply crank them in. I mean, you've got to watch what the fish is swimming with you.
Yeah.
Trying to keep them out of all the lines. Cause, you know,
there he is.
You tangle one of these things up, you're going to spend a half an hour getting her undone.
Hey, here it comes. You ready?
I've got her. Here we go.
Get him up for you. There we go.
When we come back, we're hopefully going to have this thing on the net. Chip's going to have another one, but you never know. Big one? Bigger? Faster? More? Come on, Chip, get more fish for us.